Play it cool. You shouldn't need Rick. Rick should need you. You just need to find his pressure points.
Welcome back to Nonsense. I'm Chris, and this is a breakdown of Rick and Morty, Season 8, Episode 8, NoMortLand. We open on a Jerry aggressively eating cereal while the family goes through their morning. Rick calls Space Beth out for faking having plans to avoid him. The kids fight over drinks, and Beth blames Jerry for half a second when she can't find her keys. While Morty chases Summer for a drink, this Jerry watches happily, which I found interesting given his line later in the episode.
Your family's cool, by the way. My Morty and Summer fight way more than yours.
I'm wondering if this was a lie, or if maybe this just reminded him of his kids. I want to assume the latter. But anyways, once they're all out of the house, our Jerry finally comes downstairs to find this Shadow Jerry eating his cereal, crackling nut grapes. The Jerry runs out the door, still eating the cereal, but our Jerry catches him, and they agree to talk somewhere more private, like the mall food court. The two get Chinese food on our Jerry's dime, and Shadow Jerry says,
"The road provides."
And this is an expression I've heard from a hitchhiker before, but I could not find any specific origins for it. The other Jerry admits to being from another dimension, and that he
slipped through cracks in the multiverse.
He also starts calling our Jerry Eagleman as his road name. We later find out that Shadow Jerry's road name is
Mooch. Mooch? It's my road name.
Our Jerry tells him he can't stay in this dimension, so Mooch says he can leave the dimension through the closet back home. And as they're leaving, our Jerry says,
"But just to be clear, if you do try to kill me and take over my life, I can scream very loud."
A direct reference to Dark Matter, which is a live-action, dramatic take on Rick and Morty. The Rick stand-in invents interdimensional travel through a big box and explores the other realities, eventually finding a version of himself who is happier because he focused more on his relationships, and he decides to take over his life. Anyways, they get back at home, and Rick is shoving a frozen alien into the freezer. It's huge, and it takes up the entire freezer, which is why it's hilarious when Rick says,
"There's limited space in there, Jerry. We all live here together."
Jerry distracts Rick while Mooch sneaks upstairs by talking about the new Naked and Alone episode, obviously a reference to the real show Naked and Afraid, saying,
I think that guy likes to drink the yak piss.
Rick initially gets mad Jerry's making small talk, but this sets up the post-credit scene of them watching the show together. There's a second setup for the post-credit scene during the montage, but we'll cover that when we get to it. Jerry meets Mooch upstairs, who explains that a lot of Beths get Rick to build them a pocket dimension closet. He explains a dimension next door has a closet like that and says,
You can't bend reality as often as Rick without the occasional...
And this is the explanation for all the cracks to other dimensions we see in this episode. So Mooch asks if Jerry wants to see some of the multiverse, and Jerry hesitantly says yes after making Mooch promise to get him home afterwards. They enter a new dimension, and Mooch explains an upside-down coaster means the local Jerry is cool with visitors. They all seem to have the same hot dad brewing coaster, which seems about right for Jerry. We see that this is a universe where every word is just blah, and they watch the local Rick try to force his Morty into the ship with a giant ant. Mooch tells him the next entry is in the bathroom and says to sneak over after him, but the local Summer catches our Jerry but doesn't even notice it's not her Jerry. He gets to the bathroom, and we see a picture of their Snowball, who has a cool spot on his eye. They climb through a mirror tunnel to another dimension, and this scene between the infinite tunnel and the frozen wasteland is definitely another reference to Dark Matter. And this universe's Snowball has a bigger, darker spot on his other eye. The Jerrys put on snowsuits and see the local family frozen in ice. Their Rick nowhere to be found, probably in another dimension, and also probably the cause of the frozen planet. They look at a memorial wall where the visiting Jerrys stick little items to show they've been there. I don't think any of the items are references, but just in case any of you recognize anything, there's a smiley face, which does always make me think Watchmen, but I don't think it's that. A bee here, multiple items with 2 feathers, a cleaver, a wedding ring, a bracelet, and an earring, some kind of dead animal that seems to be staring at them. I think this is a bow tie, and there's a frozen crowbar down here. The rest are just frozen hunks of metal or cloth. Mooch cuts a bit off his shirt for Jerry to stick to the wall, and they continue on the road, as Mooch calls it, launching a montage of universe exploration in classic Rick and Morty fashion. They start in a dimension where everything is made from what I think is yarn, or at least knitting supplies. You can see a bunch of yarn balls and needles everywhere. The textures are all yarny, even the bee is made of yarn, and its wings are just little unmoving loops. I wish we'd gotten to see this universe's people. Jerry accidentally unravels a yarn tree, which was funny. We cut to them in another universe, entering the fridge, and falling out of the roof in the closet of universe, where everyone is a goat. They shrink down, using a shrink ray tied to a coat rack, and ride a rat to watch from a crack as the goat family eats a metal drum, a scene from this season's theme song. They then use an armchair trap to enter the next universe, and we see a reminder of Jerry's Titanic obsession. Next, we see them in Hippie Rick's universe, partying and having a good time, before we cut to them in a flooded universe where Jerry and Rick seem like buddies. Then they have beers on the roof in a universe where Rick turned the moon into a disco ball for Morty's winter formal, sort of a reference to Rick turning everyone into Cronenbergs for Morty's flu awareness dance. The two talk for a bit, and Jerry explains he wasn't even from the dimension Mooch found him in, and the two just bond until they're out of beer. But then Jerry finds a hidden stash of warm bathroom beer, and the party keeps going. But we smash cut to them, running towards their next universe in a hurry, because the way out is by following Propeller Hat Rick and Morty through their portal home after their weekly visit to Taco La Taco. And a detail about Mooch I just noticed is that he wears a watch, obviously to help keep him on track for his multiversal hitchhiking. Having missed their connecting portal, Mooch suggests crashing with the local Gene for a week, but Jerry insists he has to get home or Rick will just replace him, which is honestly super sad if you think about it. So Mooch says the only option is Grand Central, something he doesn't seem excited about, but they head off anyways. Climbing through a broken bag of holding, a D&D reference, into Grand Central Station, where the initials are carved into a tree, a bandana Jerry, radios for a golf cart that takes them to the house. Out front, there's a bunch of tents. One of them has a home doormat, which is kinda sad. Inside we see more bandana Jerrys, and a normal one coming through the cabinet, and angry he's having to pay. They walk past a bunch of abandoned Jerrys in the living room. One has a black eye. This guy is working on a map of the universal cracks, it seems like. They walk into the boss Jerry's office as he's applying his Nevia hair dye. And the Rick is heating up what seems like crystallized portal fluid on a spoon, like it's heroin. Reminds us of this Rick from the Citadel episode. Boss Jerry wants higher pay for letting them through, and Mooch agrees. Jerry asks where he got the money, and Boss Jerry reveals Mooch steals from other Jerrys since they all have the same ATM pin. 3852, which is part of Rick's prisoner number when he's held by the Federation. Not sure if that's intentional or not. If anybody else knows why it's 3852, please leave it in the comments. Boss Jerry takes all of Mooch's stuff and Jerry threatens him saying his Rick would kick his ass. But Boss Jerry isn't fazed, and instead forces the drug-addicted Rick to send them back to Mooch's home dimension and bans them from Grand Central. When they arrive in Mooch's home dimension through Morty's school sports supplies shed, they've both been blindfolded, and our Jerry seemingly saves the blindfolds as a disguise for later when they sneak back in. Mooch doesn't want to go back to his family, revealing that he just left one day, and when he came back, Beth had remarried. Jerry doesn't care though, because he wants to get home, and his best bet is heading to Mooch's house. He knocks, and Beth's new husband answers. A callback to Season 2, Episode 2.
Paul Fleischman, Infinite Timelines, and some of them Beth remarries.
Jeez.
Don't worry, I treat Beth very well, and I do not overstep my bounds with Morty. Every kid needs a dad, but there's no replacing you.
Only that version didn't have the 5 o'clock shadow that this one has. The first actual hint we get at the joke that definitely got the biggest laugh out of me. Because when the family comes to see him, they all have the shadows too. And if this isn't the moment that got the biggest laugh out of you, I'd be curious which joke got you more than this one. Anyways, everybody sits down at the table, and Mooch explains that he left because he didn't feel appreciated, and everybody hated him. The family is just angry that he left, and all the while Jerry is just hilariously chowing down, I guess as revenge for Mooch having eaten his cereal. Their snowball looks just like ours did, which is cool. After Mooch apologizes to the family, he finally asks his Rick if he can teleport Jerry home, but Jerry doesn't know his universal address, so they agree to just go back through the shed if Rick will unlock the portal for them. So Rick does it, and they disguise themselves with the bandanas from earlier. Then they sneak back into Grand Central Station through a washing machine. We see the board with the band Jerry's, and there's one with a cool hair curl, one with a hat and sunglasses, one in, I think, a fedora, a fish Jerry. The rest are all normal looking. The guard Jerry is reading the book Fight Club, which is funny. But he basically immediately sees through their disguises, and so they push him down and sprint for a dimensional crack in the couch. They emerge in a cubism universe, which is the art style they are mimicking with the faces, but Boss Jerry is already waiting for them there. So they climb back through the couch, and we get another montage of them jumping between universes. First through Summer's closet into an old-fashioned universe where Beth is making cookies, dressed as a traditional wife and even a little more makeup on than usual. But there's a horse on her apron to show she still had her dreams and goals, even if she couldn't pursue them in this universe. They run past a Jerry who is naked and watching the Naked and Alone show. We also see another Titanic sign and an electric guitar, which I would not expect from Jerry. Anyways, they run back through that flooded dimension. Then through a portal by a pizza place that a Rick with a cool designed lab coat is visiting. And the bandana Jerrys immediately start acting innocent as the Rick catches on to what they're doing, which was funny. Then they run through the hippie universe, and finally they take the rat from the goat universe and make it big using the shrink ray from earlier, which must also work as a growth ray, obviously, and use that to break past the security at Grand Central. They leap back into the bag of holding, and Boss Jerry crawls in after them, screaming about how weak and pathetic they are, and eventually just trying to shoot them. Luckily, they make it out and manage to cut the line, presumably killing him. From here, they finally make it back to Jerry's home dimension. And here's where we have to pause, because I hate to be this guy, but this made absolutely zero sense. It doesn't matter, it's a great episode, and this ruins nothing. But just to point it out, this was the dimension they were in when they took the bag of holding to Grand Central. The one where they missed the portal out at Taco La Taco and had to wait a week, and there was no other way out. That's literally why they went to Grand Central. So how did they get home from here? Also, they visited the Yarn, hippie, and flooded universes before Grand Central or even the Taco La Taco universe, so shouldn't they have been able to get home from those? Again, it doesn't matter. But just logically, this does not add up. But again, literally, who cares? Anyways, the two say goodbye, and Mooch hints that he's going to take over for Boss Jerry, but he's less mean about it, obviously. Mooch leaves right as Beth finds Jerry and calls the family in, since it turns out everybody was freaked out and looking for him, which is really sweet, especially since he was worried the whole episode that nobody would notice, or care, if he was gone. And then Summer sets Morty up for my favorite line of the episode.
You missed Morty mating with an octopus.
It'll probably happen again.
The family leaves, including Rick, which is why this part is kind of weird. Rick leans back in after Jerry flips his coaster to let other Jerrys know they were welcome here. But look how much time passes from Rick leaving to walking back in. He must have just been standing right by the door. Maybe he suspected it already. But either way, it's kind of weird but funny to think about. Anyways, Rick figures out what it means immediately, but tells Jerry it might be good for him, which immediately causes Jerry to flip it back over as the final joke of the episode. We skip through the credits and see Naked and Alone playing, the guy talking about trapping a yak so he can drink its piss, paying off the setup from earlier when Jerry said the guy just liked drinking piss, and then we cut to Rick and Jerry watching it in the nude, paying off the scene of that other Jerry watching it nude. Overall, it was a really fun episode. I always enjoy a good Jerry episode. I mean, Chris Parnell is just so talented. But that's all for this breakdown. I'm going to do every episode of the season, so if you want to see more, please like and subscribe. And if you noticed any details I didn't, please leave a comment. After I finish breaking down the whole season, I've decided I'm going to do a full season breakdown, updated with all the additional details I've been getting in the comments recently. So thanks to everybody who's contributing, and I'll see you in the next video.
I treat Beth very well, and I do not overstep my bounds with Morty. Every kid needs a dad, but there's no replacing you.
Paul's pretty cool. I don't want to say we won the breakup, but...
It's your family, Jerry. I'm just living in it.